Hello and welcome to Raju Notes channel, your pit stop for weekly current affairs updates. The updates tailor-made for students taking all kinds of competitive exams like UPSC, civils, defense and placement interviews. Please subscribe to the channel and stay updated every Sunday. Amid protests against the Agnipath recruiting scheme in several states, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Saturday, that is on June 18th, announced that 10% of the job vacancies in the Ministry of Defence will be reserved for Agniveers, soldiers recruited under the Yojana, meeting requisite eligibility criteria. The 10% reservation will be implemented in the Indian Coast Guard and Defence Civilian Posts and all the 16 Defence Public Sector undertakings. These reservations would be in addition to the existing reservations for ex-servicemen. The RMO India cited Singh assured that necessary amendments to the recruiting scheme will be undertaken to implement these provisions. Defence public sectors undertaking will be advised to make similar amendments to their respective recruiting rules, and necessary age relaxation provisions will also come into play. So a lot of efforts being done by the government to put Agnipath scheme in a right perspective. Let's see how far this will go. Even this protest, what we have seen, has been instigated by some people. Hope things will prevail back into the country. The IT resources of private banks of ICICI, HDFC and the NCPI, which overlooks the payment of Unified Payment Authority or the UPI, has been linked to national security by the government this week. The government has declared the data of these entities as critical information infrastructure, which implies that any harm to their digital assets will be considered a threat to national security. Unauthorized persons accessing their systems could be jailed for up to 10 years as per the government notification, which has been declared under Section 70 of the IT Act 2000. In a similar worded notification, IT resources of HDFC Bank and National Payment Corporation of India have also been tagged as critical infrastructure. The notifications authorize designated employees, authorized teams, members of a contractual managed service providers, third-party members, and any consultant, regulator, or the government official or authorized by the entity mentioned above or on case-to-case basis can access these computers. Looking at the recent sophisticated cyber attacks, it is high time all banks and financial institutions get themselves notified as a protected system. Similarly, the control system of all the electricity, oil, airports, railways, metro and transport systems are critical infrastructure and must be declared as a protected system as per the experts. As per the Act, the critical information infrastructure means a computer resource, the incapacitation or destruction of which shall have a debilitating impact on the national security, economy, public health or safety. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has launched the historic torch relay for the 44th Chess Olympiad at Indira Gandhi Stadium in New Delhi. This year, for the very first time, International Chess Federation, that is FIDE, has instituted the Chess Olympiad torch, a part of the Olympic tradition. India is the first country to have the Chess Olympiad torch relay. FIDE President Arkady Dorkovich handed over the torch to Prime Minister, who in turn handed it over to Grandmaster Vishwanathan Anand. This torch will be taken to 75 cities in a span of 40 days before the final culmination at Mahabalipuram near Chennai. At every location, chess masters and chess grandmasters of the state will receive the torch. The 44th Chess Olympiad will be held in Chennai from 28 July to 10th August 2022. Israel is heading for its fifth election in less than 4 years as the fractious ruling coalition headed by Prime Minister Naftali Bennett collapsed following a series of international disputes. Bennett told the nation late Monday that he and Foreign Minister Yair Lapid have decided to act together and dissolve the Israeli parliament. Lapid will become a caretaker premier for the period leading up to the ballot as laid out in the terms of coalition agreement. Israel is due to host US President Joe Biden when he makes his inaugural Middle East tour next month. Shaky since its inception in June last year, the coalition was found primarily around a desire to defeat Netanyahu, who is on trials for corruption. The collapse of Bennett's administration is a clear indication that Israel's worst political crisis did not end when this government was sworn in, as for the experts. So let's see who forms the new government once the elections takes place. Debit and credit card tokenization rules are coming into effect from July 1st, and that means any debit card or credit card you have saved on either Flipkart, Amazon, Paytm or any other service will be removed if you do not tokenize your card. But what exactly is tokenization and why is Reserve Bank of India pushing for it? It is worth noting that the RBI has pushed back card tokenization multiple times before as a payment processor, and e-commerce portals were not ready with the required changes. Whenever you make a payment online using a debit or a credit card, you have to enter your card details, including the card number, your name, expiry date, and the 3-digit CVV. These card details are stored by the merchants' platforms using and masking for the various security measures. In case where merchants use payment processors directly, instead, the card details are stored by those procedures. So in tokenization, your card number is replaced by a random token number, and the payment processor and the banks have a system in place to map your card number to the token number. So the payment is debit and credit to the correct cardholder's account. By mandating card tokenization, the burden of security is now on payment processors and bank and not on merchants. So one more step for your kind of cyber security. The first aircraft of the airline Akasa Air, Boeing 737 MAX, has arrived at Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi on June 21st. The airline received the ceremonial key for the aircraft at Seattle, USA on June 15th. Akasa Air said that the delivery of Akasa's first aircraft brings the airline closer to obtaining its Air Operator's Permit, also called as the AOP. The airline, which is backed by the ace investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala and the aviation veteran Vinay Dubey and Aditya Ghosh, received the no objection certificate from Ministry of Civil Aviation in August 2021 to launch the commercial flight operations in India. Akasa Air aircraft order includes 72 Boeing MAX 737 airplanes. Delivery of 18 aircrafts will be given by March 2023, followed by delivery of remaining 54 aircrafts over the course of next 4 years. The airline aims to launch the commercial flight operations by the end of July. Its airline code will be QP, and I think by getting in more competitors, the flying will be much affordable to the common man. India's governing Bharatiya Janata Party has named Draupadi Murmu, a tribal politician, as its candidate for the forthcoming presidential elections. The 64-year-old former teacher who comes from Orissa has spent decades with the BJP and has a stint as a state governor. If elected, she would be the country's first tribal leader in the top post. The President of India is the head of the state but does not exercise executive powers. He or she is elected by members of both houses of the parliament and of the legislative assemblies of the state and federally administered union territories. Analysts say that the BJP has enough number to ensure its nominee's success. This week, Iran and Afghanistan have reached a water sharing agreement under the Helmand River Water Treaty signed between both countries in 1973. The Helmand River has been at the center of growing dispute between Afghanistan and Iraq over the water rights and the construction of the Kamal Khan Dam. The Iranian government argues that the dam construction on the Helmand will cause environmental damage, mainly in its water-stressed southeastern region bordering Afghanistan. On the other hand, the Afghan government argues that its construction of dams is to ensure water security in consideration with the 1973 Water Treaty with Iran. Since the signing of that treaty, Afghanistan has fallen into decades of conflict and has been unable to oversee its successful implementation. Moreover, communications between the two countries, especially in recent years, has become highly polarized over the water rights despite the treaty. So this is a very good step. Let's all welcome it. Senior diplomat Ruchira Kamboj was on Tuesday appointed as India's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York. Ms. Kamboj, a 1987 batch Indian Foreign Service officer, is presently serving as India's envoy to Bhutan. She will succeed T.S. Tirumurthy as the Indian ambassador at the UN. The 58-year-old senior diplomat was India's first female ambassador to Bhutan and has previously served as Indian ambassador to UNESCO. She worked on the reforms and expansion of the UN Security Council in 2014 and has handled India's relationship with the Commonwealth of Nations. In a first and a very superb step, the Jammu and Kashmir Police on Tuesday attached 5 houses in Srinagar used for harboring terrorists. 2 houses were attached in Pampore, while one each in Pantachowk and Nauhata and Zakura area of Srinagar district. The police also claimed that many attacks on civilians and security forces were conspired and planned by terrorists while using these houses as hideouts. These houses, where it has been provided beyond doubt that these houses were used for purpose of terrorism and shelter or harbor, was voluntarily or knowingly given by the members of the house. So therefore, according to the Section 2G and Section 25 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, these houses have been attached. So a very great step, my first time in J&K, and I hope this will be acting as a deterrence to those overground sympathizers for those anti-national elements. The Prime Minister of India on 23rd June launched the Niryat portal, which will dedicatedly deal with the import and the export analysis of India. Niryat, a short form for National Import-Export Record for Yearly Analysis of Trade, has been launched by the government to provide important real-time data to all the stakeholders. Niryat has been pegged as one-stop solution or a platform for the stakeholders for easy access to critical information related to India's foreign trade by the centre. As per the Prime Minister, from this portal, important information related to more than 30 commodity groups exported to more than 200 countries of the world will be available. In the coming time, information related to district-wide exports will also be available on this portal. If you are a cricket fan and thought IPL was exciting, then the next news is for you. The upcoming season of the Caribbean Premier League will launch a new T10 tournament named the 60. 60 as in 6 in numericals and IXTY in alphabets. This particular revolutionary format will be seen as an innovation that will change the entire T10 cricket and make the game even fast-paced and action-packed as per the Caribbean Premier League. Now, what are the rules that have changed as per the new format? Every batting team has 6 wickets in place of 10 in the other formats. Batting teams can unlock a floating third power play over by hitting 2 sixes in the initial 2 over power play. The teams will bowl 5 consecutive overs without changing ends. There will be no switching of ends after each over. If team fails to bowl their 10 overs within 45 minutes, a fielder will be removed from the final 6 balls. Fans will also be able to vote for a mystery free hit, where fans can vote for a particular ball to be deemed as a no-risk, dismissal-free delivery. It is basically just about trying everything to generate excitement and interest. Hope this cricketing format gets as much as what T20 got. Skytrax, originally known as In-Flight Research Service, is a United Kingdom-based consultancy which runs an airline and airport review and ranking site. Skytrax star ratings are recognized as a global benchmark of airlines standards around the world. This week, Skytrax has released a name of the 100 best airports, out of which 4 Indian airports figure out. We have at 37 the Delhi airport, which was last year on 45th. Bangalore airport is at 61st as compared to the 71st position in 2021. Hyderabad airport has been ranked at 63rd, followed by 65th of Mumbai airport. So Indian airports are now at par or maybe better than few of the foreign airports. Even latest was that Hyderabad airport was also given an award for the best hospitality airport in the entire South Asian countries. Jammu and Kashmir will hold the G20 meeting next year as India is to take presidency later this year. India will assume the G20 presidency on December 1st, 2022 from Indonesia and will convene the G20 Leaders Summit for the first time in India 2023. The Jammu and Kashmir administration constituted a 5-member committee for the coordination with Ministry of External Affairs. The Principal Secretary of the Government, Housing and the Urban Development Department has been nominated as the chairman of the committee. He is also nominated as UT level nodal officer to coordinate the arrangements for G20 meetings in Jammu and Kashmir. The G20 comprises 19 countries and the European Union. The 19 countries are Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, Germany, France, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, the Russian Federation, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Turkey, UK and US. So great news for India, and also probably this will break away the stereotype of view which the world has on the J&K condition. So it's a good thing and we should look forward to it. India on Friday delivered the second consignment of humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan following a devastating earthquake that ripped through the nation. Over 1,000 have been killed and about 1,500 injured in the 6.1 magnitude earthquake that shook Afghanistan on June 22nd. Ministry of External Affairs Joint Secretary JP Singh travelled to Afghanistan on June 23rd to deliver the second batch of the humanitarian aid after the first was delivered on Thursday. The relief assistance includes essential items like blankets, sleeping bags, ridge tents and mats. The aid was handed over to Taliban representative by Mr. Singh. The Taliban has welcomed India's support to help the earthquake-affected population. In a statement, the Taliban interim government spokesperson Abdul Wahab Balki thanked New Delhi for its decision to return diplomats and technical team to Kabul embassy. The Kabul embassy remained mostly vacant after US withdrawal last year. However, the New Delhi has continued to uphold its solidarity with the Afghan population, sending over 20,000 tons of wheat, 13 tons of medicines, winter clothing and over 5 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccine as an aid. Whenever we hear about a bacteria, we generally think about an electron microscope because of its size. But scientists have discovered the world's largest bacterium in a Caribbean mango swamp, and it is so big that you can see it with your naked eye. The thin, white filament, which is approximately the size of a human eyelash, is by far the largest bacterium known till date. The bacterium is named as Theomargarita magnifica or magnificent sulfur pearl and can reach a length of 2 centimeters. It is roughly 50 times larger than all known giant bacteria. The researchers have not been able to grow the bacteria in lab culture yet. However, they said that the cell has a structure that is unusual for a bacteria. One key difference is that the bacteria has a large central compartment or a vacuole that allows some cell functions to happen in that controlled environment instead of throughout the cell. The scientists said that they aren't certain why the bacterium is so large. They only have a hypothesis saying that the large size of the bacteria could be an adaptation to help it avoid being eaten by smaller organisms. This week, the US Congress has passed a gun control bill, the most significant firearms legislation in nearly 30 years. The bill is now headed to President Joe Biden to be signed into a law. After 28 years of inaction, bipartisan members of Congress came together to heed the call of family across the country and passed the legislation to address the scourge of gun violence in the communities. The bill came after a mass shooting last month at the supermarket in Buffalo, New York, and a primary school at Texas that left 31 people dead. The reforms include tougher background checks for buyers younger than 21 years, $15 billion in federal funding for mental health programs and school security upgrades, funding to encourage states to implement red flag laws to remove firearms from people considered as threat, closing the so-called boyfriend loophole by blocking gun sales through those convicts of abusing unmarried intimate partners. The bill is also significant because it is the first time in decades that proposed reforms have received this level of support from both Democrats and Republicans. The last significant federal gun control legislation was passed in 1994, banning the manufacture for civilian use of assault rifles and large capacity magazines, but it expired a decade later. So a much needed reform in US finally. The 14th BRICS Summit was held virtually on June 23, 2022. The negotiators from India seek to ensure that any joint statement made out of this summit is a neutral, as look to prevent any attempts by China and Russia to use this platform to score a propaganda against the US and its ally. The Indian side will also seek to delay China's efforts of expanding BRICS group by pushing organizations to bring about criteria of adding new members. The BRICS Summit 2022 was held under the theme Foster Higher Quality BRICS Partnership, usher in a new era of global development. This BRICS summit will provide China and Russia a vehicle to expand their vision of global order as leaders of both countries declare a no-limits friendship before Russia invaded Ukraine. China has extended crucial diplomatic support to Russia as it seeks to redefine the terms democracy and human rights. Russia, Brazil, India and China formed the BRICS bloc in 2009. South Africa joined the bloc in 2010, thereafter which the BRICS bloc was created. "50 years ago, a landmark US Supreme Court ruling in the Roe vs. Wade case granted women abortion rights that have now been taken away in a big setback to those looking for safe terminations of unwanted pregnancies. Many US states already have laws in place that ban or limit abortions, and these can now become into force either immediately or within 30 days. Though this does not mean abortion is illegal across America, as individual states can frame their own laws for the procedure. But women, especially those of color, in as many as 13 US states where access to abortion could be curtailed, will be put at severe disadvantage by the Supreme Court's decision, which is being celebrated as a pro-life judgment by those who advocate for ban on abortions. This is a double-sided weapon. If you recall, in 2012 case in Ireland where Savita Halgapanwar, a woman of Indian origin, died because she was denied an abortion in a Catholic country that prized all life, but apparently not the woman who succumbed to the septicemia. Her child did not survive either. After a massive outcry, abortion was decriminalized in Ireland. Earlier this week, the Central Board of Direct Taxes (CBDT) issued new guidelines under which the social media influencers will have to pay the TDS for the gifts and the freebies they receive. The freebies that influencers receive from the businesses for promotion will attract 10% tax. Insertion of a new section 194R in the Income Tax Act of 1961 was introduced in the Union Budget to levy TDS on such incomes to keep a check on the tax revenue leakage. Persons receiving these freebies would be required to reveal them while submitting an income tax return. This TDS will be applicable from 1st July onwards. The TDS will not apply if the benefits availed don't exceed 20,000 for a year. Now, let's quickly see our famous segment This Week Back in History. June 1946, direct action begins in Goa. On this day, about 76 years ago, Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, a socialist political leader of India, called for a direct action day against the Portuguese in Goa. Lohia gave a clarion call to the people of Goa to resist the colonialists. When the Portuguese refused to peacefully exit Goa, the government of India launched Operation Vijay in 1961 to end the more than 450-year-old Portuguese rule that began with Vasco da Gama's arrival in 1498. On June 19, 1991, 31 years ago, the last Soviet troops were withdrawn from Hungary. Russian troops came in as liberators of Hungary during World War II, but never left the country. Hungary was made a member of the Warsaw Pact in 1955, and the Russians invaded Hungary in 1956 after suppressing a spontaneous revolution against the communist rule. The Hungary attained freedom from Russia after the end of Warsaw Pact, right before the collapse of Soviet Union. "145 years ago, on June 20, 1877, Alexander Graham Bell installed the first commercial telephone service in Canada. Just a year ago, he had been awarded with the first US patent for the telephone. Prolific inventor, Bell held more than 18 patents and 12 others that he shared with collaborators. He founded the Bell Telephone Company in 1877. After many mergers and the name changes over the years, it is today known as AT&T. June 21, 1948, Louis Mountbatten resigns as Governor General of India. Lord Mountbatten, a cousin of the King Emperor, was appointed by the British government to wrap up the empire. Few men have been as concerned with how history would portray them as Mountbatten, and history does remember him for the role he and his wife played in the last days of British Raj. 81 years ago, on June 22, 1941, Adolf Hitler invades Soviet Union. On this day, the Nazi German leader Adolf Hitler ordered a massive invasion of Soviet Union under Operation Barbarossa, the largest military operation in history. After dominating World War II on the west, Hitler hoped for a quick victory on the east. He catastrophically misjudged the resilience of the Russians in one of the biggest military blunders ever. Hitler disregarded that winter was literally coming, and that was the one which saw his downfall. On June 24, 1374, the dancing plague hits Europe. On this day, about 648 years ago, the town of Aachen in Germany was struck by an outbreak of uncontrollable dancing. Initially, it started with one lady dancing uncontrollably, then slowly it picked on. The reasons were not known, and the entire town was dancing till the time they fell down because of exhaustion, because of dehydration, and even lost their lives. It was then slowly passed on to the other particular place of Strasbourg in 1518. The reason was not known, and somehow this event has been recorded in Ripley's Believe It or Not. Well, that's all friends from my side for this week's update. Stay tuned for more updates next Sunday on the very same channel. Till then, take care. Bye bye.